You're welcome back to the Naija Filmmaker, a podcast for us to talk about Nigerian filmmakers, their films, and how it can build a diverse and functional industry. I'm your host, Selegot. On this episode, my guest is Alexandra Hul. She is a writer and director and has worked on a range of shorts, feature films, and TV series. We talk about story structure within the Nigerian context, what it takes to be a modern Nigerian filmmaker, and how to deal with self-doubts. If you're a new listener, you're welcome and I hope you enjoy. Hi Alex, you're welcome to the Naija Filmmaker.
Hello, what's up?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, fine. Good. Thank God for life, you know.
Okay. Can you introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name is Alexandra Hul, also known as Alex. I'm a writer, I'm a director,
Yeah.
I'm a filmmaker.
Okay. So can you tell us how you got started in filmmaking?
Okay, so I like to tell this interesting story. Like, I think we always, like, any filmmaker or any content creator or any artist, like, there was a part in your childhood that made you realize that you're going to do film, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think it's that thing for me. And I tell this story a lot. People don't believe me. I don't know how you would judge me for it, but I'm still going to say it, yeah. So I think my earliest memory of storytelling was from my childhood. Like, I used to lie a lot.
Yeah.
I used to lie a whole lot. Like, I was that kid that, you know those kids in primary school that would say things like, oh, my house flew. I went to London for the weekend and that was me. That was like, that's my MO.
Yeah.
And so that time, it was childish like this, but people would just, like, they know I'm lying, but they'll just sit down, especially my aunties and my mom. They'll sit down with the king. Like, just wait, like, the lie is interesting, so they'll wait for me to finish.
Yeah.
They'll wait for me to finish lying. And well, they'll even ask questions. They'll even ask questions about one or two characters that I've created. Really enjoy it.
Mm.
When they are done, they'll now beat me for lying. And obviously, I'll tell the truth. Like, so yeah, that's how it started. But I think that that's my earliest form of telling stories. When I went to university, I had this senior school mother at that time. So you're a senior student that takes care of you.
Yeah.
And she was not...
Was that secondary school or university?
Secondary school.
Okay.
And she was not big online. So she just really had a problem with me always trying to, like, make the truth more interesting. That even if I'm telling the truth, I just want to make it more interesting.
Yeah.
And so she sat me down one day and she told me that, you know, like, if you write a book now, that's when she was graduating. I was in Gesture at that time. And she was like, instead of always like... And she said it in kind of like preaching, because she was a very spiritual person, a very religious person. So she was just trying to advise me about not lying and what the good book says about lying.
Yeah.
And so she bought me 40 leaves, like a set of 40 leaves, right? A set of 60 leaves and a pack of biros. And she was like, man, like, your lies are so, like, innovative, and do you know that you can write a book? Like, instead of anytime you feel like you want to lie or you want to, like, exaggerate the truth, just keep that thought and put it in this book. So she gave me that book. And that's when I realized that. So obviously I don't lie again. But I consciously made an effort to stop lying from that day. But I never was able to write in a book. Like, anytime I opened the book to write, like, prose or anything, it didn't really, like, I didn't see my stories come to life or, like, so I still have that book in my house. I still have, not the biros, but I still have the book.
Yeah.
So I never really wrote in them. Then in university, I was a dancer. And in 300 level, there was an audition for a dance movie.
Yeah.
At that time, it never came out, but there was an audition for a dance movie that never came out. And so I went to audition, and I got picked for the lead role. And that was the first time I saw a script. And it was like I found the lost love. It's like I felt like I can't tell like it was like I literally found a lost lover. Like the this holding the script felt so familiar to me, even if I had never seen a script before.
Yeah.
It's like this is how I just realized that this is how I want my stories to be told. This is how I see my stories, the way it was written, the way I could relate to the pattern and all that. That's when I realized that the reason why I was never able to write because art, filmmaking, prose, painting is all part. Art is a form of storytelling,
Yeah.
and we always have to choose our medium. And so your medium can be music, your medium can be painting, your medium can be prose, poetry, spoken words, and like the whole variation. And I was being forced because of old media and like literary artists were more respected than filmmakers at the time, and that's why my school mother at that time was trying to force me to be a writer, than like maybe she might not have even known about filmmaking. She wasn't exposed to it. So at that point I realized that the reason why I could never write a book was, and she promised me that if I ever wrote a book, she would do anything possible to make sure it get published. And the reason why I could never write a book is because I never saw my stories in a book form.
Okay.
So it was easy. Immediately I figured that out. The writer of the screenplay at that time, I haunted the guy. I literally stalked the guy on Facebook. And thankfully, he was living close to me. So I was able to started sending him stuffs and ideas that I had. And he was gracious enough to take me under his wings and put me through and teach me like from the basic. So, and he was an academically trained. He's not dead. He is an academically trained writer, and he's like a master of his craft, and he is a scholar of the art. So I really had a good foundation learning when I started learning how to write, and it was easy for me. And then I realized that in the space of filmmaking, I also still I still liked directing and this, and I realized that was another medium I could use to tell my stories. So yeah, that is it. That's how I fell in love with filmmaking specifically. As a storyteller, I think I've always told stories, but in different, as a lawyer.
Okay.
I just tell stories as a writer and a director.
So you say you're a writer director. When was the first time you worked on a film behind the camera?
Okay, so anyway, the first thing I worked on was a music video. Okay, before that, after I had the film that never came out, the dancing film that
Why
never
didn't it
came
come out?
I don't know. I'm not the producer. I wish I knew.
Yeah.
I'm not a producer. Like, obviously, and that brings us the question of how, like, the industry really, really, like, it's been, like, there are superheroes in Nigeria and they are called filmmakers.
Yeah.
Being a filmmaker in Nigeria is 2 times as hard. It's 2 times harder than being a filmmaker in Cameroon or Lomé or being in Republic. And I'm not lying. It is stressful. Like, you are being stressed from every angle of the triangle. Obviously, they had that constraint. Making film in Nigeria was like, I don't even know. I don't want to say it's easier now because my experience might not be the experience of others. And I was not making film then. So I'm not in the right place of mind. I'm not in the right position to judge which is better, which is harder, which is easier or harder to make film.
Yeah.
But I'd just like to assume that the reason why it didn't come out is because they tried their best and their best wasn't good enough in terms of meeting to a lot of problems, Nigerian problems and Nigerian constraints that affected the film industry at that time. They were fighting directly against the grain. Even I was just a dancer that was hired to act the part, but I could see some battles, and I didn't know anything about film. I didn't know anything about camera. I didn't know anything about production. I didn't know anything about anything. But I could like see some of the battles that they fought at that time. Location battles, agboro battles, funding, people promising money and never showing up. The film was fundraised. So they started production with some people that had already brought in money, while some other people had promised, and like that too. Like I saw those problems. I saw problems of paying actors, directors. They just had a lot of issues that, to be honest, I'm not like I wasn't even aware at that time. You know, just this happy kid that just at that time, I think I was 19 going on 20. I was 20 at that time. So I was just this happy kid that just wanted to do you understand? I just wanted to dance and do her thing, and then found this love of screenplay.
Yeah.
I didn't really pay attention to what didn't make it work, or never really asked. So yeah.
Okay. So back to the first behind the camera experience.
That's I like being an actor. That's what I'm saying. Being an actor at that time. That's it. The other one would be, aside that, would be, I think the first time I was behind the camera was for a music video.
Yeah.
I just, at that time, I'd finished school. I was waiting for my NYSC, but I had this contract job with Federal Ministry of Agriculture at that time. And then I knew a film, but I was still always trying to get into the film space.
Yeah.
So I met this guy who was going to shoot a music video in Nasara, like a series of 11 music videos. And so I begged him at that time, like I was so intrigued with just anything film. So I'll just see someone shooting on the road, and I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah. I'm
literally going somewhere else, and then I'll just park, come down from the car or the bike or anything mode of transport I'm in, and just stand there and introduce myself and start following them around. So yeah, that's how I met one person. I was going to shoot a music video. I can't do that now because Nigeria is not as safe, and I trust people a lot less now. But then I was very, very naive and trusting. I was going to shoot a music video in Suleja, and you know what I did? I packed my bags and I went to him. And for 11 days, I was in Suleja.
Yeah. Did the music video last, like, they shot it for 11 days?
Yeah, for 11 days, one music video a day.
Okay,
for 11 days.
Yeah, multiple,
11, yeah. And that was my experience. So I was his camera assistant to hold the camera, hold the lenses. I learned how to clean lenses. I learned how to fix lenses. I learned a lot about lenses at that time. I know about lenses. I learned a lot about, it was a 7D, Canon 7D at that time. So I learned a lot about Canon 7D. Yes, I learned a lot about music video, track and dolly, the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
And it was quite an experience. After I came back from that, I shot my first short film.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, like you have very humble beginnings in filmmaking. Like, when did you realize you wanted to like write and direct?
Okay, so I realized I wanted to write and direct definitely after the film where I danced that never came out. Let's call it the one that got away.
Yeah.
The film that got away. After that, I was still in contact with a lot of people on set at that time. And I still, till now, have long-term relationships with a lot of people that I met on that set. A lot of people behind the scenes at that time. So one of them, while I was still learning how to write, one of them was enrolling in, was going, he is a producer, but he was trying to write something and he didn't have the time to write it. And so I was like, oh, I can use this to learn. Like, since you don't have to, because he was producing a documentary at that time and he was trying to write something for a competition, but he didn't have time to write it. So he just said it in passing that, oh, he really wanted to get into this competition, but he doesn't have the time. And you know me now, my chatterbox, exciting personality at that time. I was like, oh, no, I can use it and learn now. I'm looking for what to write. And since you don't have the time, let me just use this as my training.
Yeah.
So which is what I did. at the time. I wrote the script for him. It was badly. The story was good, obviously, telling the story, but in terms of structure and like technicality and formatting, it was badly written. But it was like I was so proud of it. So I gave it to him. He read it. He loved the story, but obviously the formatting and everything there worked. So he reformatted it and sent it for the festival, and he won. He wanted to put my name on. Like, my name is not on that work.
Yeah.
For good reason. It's not like any bad blood or it was stolen. And I don't tell people the name of the film. I don't try to, because, and I'm only saying this now because I'm telling my history of film. But people always, when you tell someone that, oh, I did this and I love it and I still respect this work, people always assume that you've been cheated. No. I literally didn't want my name on it because I didn't think I was good enough and I was using it as a training wheel.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad I didn't put my name on it because I'm glad that he didn't, he gave me the opportunity to have my name on it, but I'm glad I didn't take that opportunity because that's what motivated me to write my own and then win my own award.
Okay.
That was my first writing experience.
Okay.
And that's how I started writing. So I started my career as a writer.
Yeah.
I actually did start. I wrote like a year, 2 years before. I wrote like a year or 2 years before I started actually directing. I knew I wanted to direct, but I was into more writing. And that's why, like, till now, till this day, I can count on many things. I think it's only like 2 things that I've written and directed. When I write, I try not to be the director. When I direct, I try not to be the writer. I always like to interpret other people's work.
Yeah.
And I always like to see how other people interpret my work. At first, I didn't really understand that. But then I wrote a short story for a foundation.
Yeah.
And I was on set while they were shooting it. And so at that time I was like, no, this is not what I wrote. This is not how I wrote. This is not how I know. I was just that chatterbox of a writer that was a pain in the behind for the director. But when the film came out, it was like the film was literally what I wanted to see. Yeah. That there were some things that I wanted to see in the film because the film was a PSA. Yeah. It was a PSA for a certain thing. So there were things that I really wanted to see in the film, but I couldn't. And when I saw the director's work, there were things that words failed me. Like in terms of emotion, I was very young, growing writer at that time. So in terms of channeling my emotions or some certain level of emotions to a character, I didn't really know how to do it, but I knew what I wanted. But when the film came out, it was exactly how I felt, how I wanted the character to feel, how I felt about the character. The director was able to translate that, and there was no way that I would have been able to do that. And I realized that, and I accepted that. So from that day, I really, really, I still maintain that I don't want to direct what I've written, and I don't want people to. I don't want the same thing. I don't direct what I've written. I want to write what I will direct because I feel.
Yeah. Did you guys have a conversation on what you were trying to get across, or they just went on the script and interpreted it?
Yes, the interpretation was. I think obviously I had 1 or 2 conversations with the director. Yes, I did, but. Yes, I did. But it takes a special skill to even pay attention to what the writer is saying and isn't saying. What the writer wants but hasn't put on paper. Yeah. And sometimes you don't even have that golden opportunity to talk to the director, especially in the way our industry is structured. Sometimes you sold the script and that's the end, and then one day you see the script on TV. Yeah. So, yeah, I had it, but I don't think that was it. I just think that there's a special place for people to interpret your work differently. And I value that place. Yeah. And I always look forward to interpreting other people's stories in my own way. Okay. It's very interesting and it's an interesting thing.
What do you do to kind of make sure you're not complacent, you keep improving what you bring to the table with your writing?
Well, first of all, I wish I can answer that question because I am complacent. I realized that I am complacent. Like it's a flaw that I recently saw in this year of our Lord 2020 that I'm trying to change. Yeah, so I have been like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, if anyone knows the answer, please hit me up. I have realized that I like to some extent, not only as a writer, as just a general filmmaker, I've been stuck in like in certain ways that I need to like change, or I don't know how to put it. I just need to expand my thinking.
Yeah.
And like expand my horizon on certain things. And this is something I'm working on. This is something I noticed. Something I'm working on. The ways that I've chosen to, or rather, the ways that have worked for me in terms of improving that or working on my story is just like I realized I was a better storyteller when I knew less. When I didn't talk a lot.
Yeah.
So I was more observant, and my characters were like a lot more grounded.
Yeah.
So, and this realization came from the fact that one day I was looking at my pictures. I was very quiet growing up. So I was looking at my baby pictures, and I was just going through stuff, sorting out stuff in my room. And then I saw one picture of me smiling, and I had told one of those my life stories to one of my aunties. And I just remembered how it started, how I saw the thing happen.
Yeah.
So the security man had broken a glass cup and he packed it and threw it in the dustbin. I saw it happen. Like, I was sitting down there, I was quiet, I saw it happen. But when he came to ask me, like, there was a lion that entered and a monkey that, like, the story went wild. So I can remember that picture because I was smiling in that picture and my auntie had beaten me. Because the mega like came and listened to the story. Like the security man came and was like, I'm the one that, hey auntie, that cup you dropped here, I'm the one that broke it. I said, like, I know. And my auntie was like, I know, but like, let her finish first. So well, like, I remember smiling in that picture because even though they had beaten me, I was fulfilled.
Yeah.
That like, oh my God, I got to express or tell. And at that time, as a child, I didn't realize that I was fulfilled because I got the opportunity to express my story. I was a very quiet person, and that was the only time that I had spoken about that situation, and I got the opportunity to express myself. So I didn't know at that time as a child, I didn't know that was why I was happy. But looking back and looking at the picture again, I realized that the reason why is because I was like, it was my own version of the story, and I was proud of that version of the story.
Yeah.
And so I realized that when I started talking a lot and being more like, being able to talk more and all that, I just realized that I stopped noticing things. I stopped being in so like once in a while these days I take time for myself to just like sit down, watch people do stuff, go to a park, just look at characters, just build your own world in your head in your quiet time. The world has become very, very noisy as an adult for me. And sometimes when I want to tell, because the world has become very noisy as an adult for me, sometimes when I want to tell stories, I fall back to my preset, which is what has made me complacent. So I fall back to things that I've studied or things that already works for me in terms of this character told that I can blah, 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 just write it and go, and then the script looks like a shadow of what you want. And so sometimes I tune out the noise. Just take time to watch people and listen to people's conversations and stuff.
Okay. So you mentioned that maybe you have been a bit complacent. So how important is kind of discipline for a filmmaker, like discipline with craft and discipline with like maintaining relationships?
That is a very good question, especially for me. So discipline, there's like, there are a lot of things that people think, like when you say, what are the important things you should have as a filmmaker? A lot of people say, talent, creativity. Ooh. To be honest, one of the most important things you should have as a filmmaker is discipline. And discipline has screwed me over. Discipline or lack of it, my lack of discipline has screwed me over times without numbers, and it's a sad thing to admit, but it's true.
Yeah.
When I first started my career, I thought that talent was enough, because at the time I started, film was not really an acceptable job description. Yeah. It was not. And so because of that, there were always, everything I read, from city people to, okay, I used to read those magazines. You can carbonate me. I'm very old. But everything I read at that time just really had a negative view on film and filmmaking. And at the time that I consciously made up my mind to make film, aunties, uncles, everybody and their grandmother had a negative thing to tell me about film and why I shouldn't be a filmmaker, and why, it's not a good place for a well-educated woman. It's not a good place for a well-trained woman. It's not a good place for a woman with a good background. And so I just unconsciously came into the industry assuming that is, man, inshallah vibes. Like, we move it that way. But it's not that, especially with the new generation of filmmakers and the kind of filmmakers that exist now, 2020 and beyond. Discipline is very important. If you want to work with the right crop or the right people, you have to be disciplined. You have to time in delivering your work is very, very important. We always make jokes about editors and writers that don't deliver, and it's all fun and games until you lose jobs because of it. I'm a very slow writer, and that has cost me a lot of, like, not because I'm a slow writer, but because I wasn't disciplined enough to time myself, my writing process properly, and give a date where I could. Do you understand? I wasn't disciplined enough to be proactive when I'm not meeting a deadline, and then communicate. Discipline and communication, very important. Those are the two very important things to being a modern day Nigerian filmmaker: discipline and communication. And those two things are things that I would, if anyone was coming in now and I had to give them an advice or something, it's just like, man, your talent is good, your creativity is good, but you see this discipline and this communication thing, you have to work on it. And communication is not just about crew members. Like, film is told in different mediums, from crew members to actors to editing and all that. And film is such a collaborative effort that you need to know how to express yourself properly to your cast and crew. You need to be emotionally, mentally, physically intelligent enough to bring out those emotions. Do you understand? From your actors. You just need to, I don't know how to put it, you need to communicate what you want. It's not like, it has gone beyond, I want you to cry. Oh yeah, sit down here. Then turn like this in the camera and do this, and we've really gone beyond that. So to me personally, minus the whole communication in delivering work and having a good working relationship with clients and your colleagues in the industry. Also communication with your actors. Very important. And I think discipline and communication is what takes you far, because people might open doors for you, and people might open doors for you because of your talent. Oh, I saw this talented writer, I saw this talented director, I'd like you to meet her, and the door is open for you. But it's discipline and communication keeps you in the room. So these things are really, really important. These are things that I learned a lot later and I wish I learned earlier. It's not like people weren't telling me, but I just didn't think it was as important. I was like, talented, already. Okay, that is very, very vain to see that, but I know how to write, or I know how to do this. Once I work on my talent and I work on my craft, and once I'm creative enough, they'll hire me and they'll work on my process, whatever the process is. Man, if your process sucks, process is annoying, if you give people headache, if you make producers lose money, if every time you are working on a set, half of the people there need to take high BP drugs, no one will hire you. It's true. if you're unpredictable, if you're not bankable,
Yeah.
like they can't predict your time, your work process, they can't bank on you to deliver work projects and all that, you are not going to get the job. Yeah.
Okay. So you talked about like the first script you worked on and how you didn't want your name to be on it because you didn't feel it was good enough. Like how is that even like right now with kind of not feeling good enough with things you make?
Well, I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself as Alexandra Hul. I've never, ever, up until the last thing I worked on, never ever felt any of them was good enough. I don't know if it's me, my mentality, or my thinking. I'm just generally honestly, I'm trying to just be really, really honest here in this podcast. I don't know who is going to help. I don't know if this story is going to be helpful to anyone or not. Like, I don't know. Like, it's always, there's always something I want to add in the edit room. There's always something I want to add as a writer. I don't know if it's imposter syndrome. I don't know what it is, but like in that regard, I'm a work in progress. It's just a mentality stuff. You understand? You give what I do, however, is that I let a lot of people read I have a group of people, colleagues in the industry, and when I'm done with work, my first draft, and I'm talking about my first draft, my shittiest draft, I always send it to them to read and give me honest opinions. And then I remove my emotions and my heart and my inadequacy out of the process and then focus. When I'm writing, my first draft is my most creative, I feel is my most personal draft. My first draft is my most personal draft. It's where I put all my emotions, and when I tell the story, I leave nothing, I leave my heart on the screenplay for my first draft. Like, I tell the story the story is personal to me in my first draft, very personal. And after that, I give it to people to read and help me, like, to read and send notes. And then I close my mind. Now my brain is working. It's no longer my mind. It's no longer my emotions. No longer how personal the story is to me. All those things are shut out. And that helps me deal with the inadequacy, because now I'm working with this thing. I'm working with the notes and the corrections. And so when I put all that to people that I trust, I now send it to the client as my first draft. So I have an 0.1, a first draft 0.1 and a first draft 0.2. And what I usually send to the client as a first draft is what I have given someone that I trust to look at and give me notes in terms of story. And then I put those notes into the story. And then I send. At that time, when I've done that with my 0.2 first draft, my mind is now on work mode as a technical writer, and my emotions it will take a lot for me to bring my emotions back to the table. Like, it will take a lot. So my emotions are now out of it.
Okay. I mean, so this is a helpful way of working. Like, you know kind of what you feel about it, and you found a way to kind of mitigate against it. But are you like thinking of a way that you get to a point where you don't need to send it to people, or you always want to do that?
It gets better with age. I think the best thing about filmmaking is that consistency gives you the confidence that you're looking for. When I first started, I used to send to like 5 people before I now look, and they understand. But now I sent only 4 people. That's good. That's good. That is good. But I think that's good for me. I don't think what I'm doing is bad. I don't think being overly critical about your work, yes, to some extent, you shouldn't be. You should just but I mean, it is what it is. If I continue this, if this is my process till the end of my career as a filmmaker, I'm still okay with it. Like, I don't have a problem with this process. I'm not looking to change it anytime soon. I think it works for me and I'm okay with it. I'm not looking to change anytime soon. And yeah, it also happens, like, I also do the same thing for when I'm directing.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's kind of more real time. How do you...
More real time.
Yeah, so like you're on set, you're directing.
No. Like when I'm directing. So directing for me, doesn't just end on set.
Yeah.
You go to the edit room. So when I'm directing and when I'm cutting and all that, I never, like, there's always something to add. Like if you leave me, you have cut 425. There's always something to add in every cut. So I do this thing where I shut my brain out when I've like edited to like cut 25. Like I shut my brain out, call someone that I trust. Sometimes not even a filmmaker, just someone that I trust their creativity. Might be an artist, a musician, or anything. Because I don't necessarily, like, I'm not calling you to check on the technical stuff. I have the editor and a whole lot of other people to work on the technical stuff.
Yeah.
Just calling you to tell me if the story works, if you can relate to it. It's always about relatability for me. Can people relate to my work? And I think that's the that's where my fear comes from. I have never written a character that is close to me in this life. Never written a character. I've written characters that I've like taken things, quirks or mannerisms or situations from my life, like one or two things, but never a character that is close to who I am as Alexandra.
Yeah.
And this is because I feel like there might be a part of me in the character, but like someone that I will say, oh, I feel so close to this character that I can relate. It's always far from me because I feel like I am too weird to be on screen. Like, like no one will understand me. I always feel that way. And I think that's where my fear comes from. I always want my work to be relatable. And sometimes I feel like I'm too weird to be relatable. I'm confident in my weirdness. I've accepted it, but I have accepted it, but what about other people? Have they accepted it? Do they know how weird I am? And sometimes that's what scares me. Like, will people be able to understand what I'm saying? Will people be able to understand the perspective or where I'm coming from? Yeah. And so that's why I give it to other people. Like, can you relate to it? Oh, yes, I can relate to it. I prefer this or I prefer that. Oh, okay, I'll change it. But like, it's very important that people relate to my film because I'm not making film to put in my box. I'm making film, like, I think my validation as a filmmaker comes from people understanding my expression. So I really want people to be able to relate to this film. Where I wanted you to cry, I want you to cry. Where I wanted you to laugh, I want you to laugh. And that's where my fear comes from, that I'm not, because I feel too weird in real life, might not be as relatable to other people.
Yeah. Okay. You said that you're a better filmmaker when you didn't know too many technical things. Why is that?
For 100% sure. And I'd like to actually ask other filmmakers if they feel the same way. Like, if you've been in the industry for 10 years, you feel the same way. I think I was a better filmmaker when I was naive. I was a better storyteller. I won't say I was a better filmmaker. That's the wrong word. Not a better filmmaker. Let me correct myself. I was a better storyteller when I didn't know a lot of technical stuff. I feel like I used to tell stories from the heart.
So is this like technical script writing things or technical filmmaking?
Technical everything.
Yeah.
Technical everything. I think I was a better filmmaker when I didn't used to... there was a time in my career where I focused a lot on the technical stuff. And I learned a lot and I forgot to just tell stories from the heart. So now I am finding a balance, knowing the technical stuff and also allowing my story to breathe through it, because just allowing my story to be what it is, a story, and not just put a lot of technicalities into it. So the simplest shots sometimes are... Let me give you an example. when I was learning about the thing, so this also came from a form of inadequacy. Like I always used to feel inadequate because I didn't go to film school. And I always felt like people that went to film school were infinitely better. So there was this
But
need.
did you have like a lot of people to compare yourself with?
Yes. So there's someone I used to look up to a lot in the industry. But there's someone I used to look up to a lot in the industry.
Yeah.
And he went to film school. And it was a big deal for me that I didn't like at the time. It was a big deal for me. So, and I'll be in his office all the time and I'll see his work process and I'll just tell myself, like, if I went to film school, I'll be able to work like this. I'll be able to do stuff the way he is. What I keep saying was, he's very organized and very structured and everything. So I'm like, man, if I go to film school, I'll be able to be like this. So I used to borrow his books. He has a lot of books. So I borrow his books, read everything. If I see him reading something now, I would wait for him to, like, when I realize that he has finished reading, I'll borrow that book and go and read it. Or I'll look for the online version if I can't wait. Look for the online version and make sure I read it. And I just really felt like I would be a complete filmmaker if I went to film school, but I didn't have the facilities to go to film school, and time was not my side. I felt at that time was not my side. So I was a YouTube alumni. I used to download anything from masterclass. If a filmmaker coughs on masterclass, best believe I'm analyzing that cough. And watch every masterclass, read every book, read every interview from every director, their PA, their dog, their cat, anything that director puts out about a film, I'm reading it.
Yeah.
And so coming into, like, I wasn't able to, because I had a lot of information and I wanted to and I didn't realize that a lot of directors had different processes, and at that time I didn't realize that you just have to pick what works for you. Do you understand? And so I would have read 4 directors, their work and their life works and all that, and I want to put all those 4 directors' work into my one short film.
Yeah.
And so you would see me trying to stress a scene so much, trying to use a track and dolly, trying to get this lighting, trying to make the actor stand in a certain position, and not realizing that all those things don't work together. And the reason why it looked so exceptionally beautiful in this film is because only one component was used, and it was used to complement the story that was told in that scene. Well, no, for me, it was just trying so hard to make sure people knew that I knew the technical stuff. So yes, on learning that was a very big process of my growth. Like, was a very big part of my growth. On learning that, I don't know why I learned it. I don't know, but on learning that was very important to me. And so I realize now that, like, sometimes a scene has to be simple. Like, you don't need to do you just need to. Some scenes are carried by the actor, some scenes are carried by the lighting, some scenes are carried by the camera work, and you just have to pick your battles and know what is what. And this is something that I didn't learn before. And so that is when I was a technical filmmaker. Now, when I was not a technical filmmaker, when I didn't know all that stuff, what was important to me was how the actors said the word, how real it was. When I didn't know all those stuff, when I'm directing, like when I wasn't learning all the technical stuff, when I didn't go on a learning spree on all the technical stuff, when I'm directing, I forget about all that because I know that, these people know what they are doing.
Yeah.
And I'm always focused on the actor and what the actor is saying and how the actor is saying it and how relatable it is and mannerisms of said actor and all that. And so watching my older films and then my film, like comparing to films that had put so much pressure on the technical stuff, I genuinely, as not as an audience, I genuinely enjoyed my older films.
Yeah.
And I could relate to them because it was just the actor giving the best work. But the sound might not have been good, the camera work would be very basic, but the story was very, very like strong and all that. And so, yeah, I had to learn all that. I had to really understand that, take a break from all the technical stuff, and realize that the reason, like, all those things are supposed to work together for the good of the story, not independently.
Okay. I mean, it's a good thing to be reading books and to find out what people have done and kind of their view on things, because that comes from like the probably decades of working in the industry. But how do you balance kind of reading a lot with reality, with actually making
read again.
films? You don't read again?
I don't read again. I've stopped reading. Like, I have conversations with filmmakers. I work based on experience now, what works for me and what works for the story. I hardly go out to really look for material or books again. I believe like there's like every day we learn every day, right? But I think I've mentally taken a break from like actively going out, unless I'm looking for something specific.
Yeah.
Then I go out to look for that thing. But as at that time, I'm telling you, it's no joke. Like, I used to have I created a scheme, a reading scheme. I had a curriculum.
Yeah.
Like, literally, I googled what they used to read in New York Film School, and I made my curriculum based on that. And every day I used to like try and meet up. Like, that was how bad it was. So unless I have something specific that I want to read or I want to research, then I go and do that. But I have just let, like, for me, just let the story breathe, let everything. I think I've just, like, if I have questions, I ask. If I have something I don't understand, I research, but it's no longer like work, like academic work again. I'm not saying that people should stop researching or stop trying to get better. No, that's not what I'm saying. Just saying that, like, the reason why all this technical stuff exists, I'm just trying to explain that what I realized was that the reason why all this technical stuff exists is to complement the story. And so at the point in my life, I was lost in the technicalities and forgot that story was what was important.
Yeah.
It also happened to me in writing, like formatting and getting all those like things. You like, have you ever written a well formatted bullshit? Like, well formatted piece of shit. Like, in terms of you use the right writings, you use the right writing software. You have all your formats, you have all your technical stuff, all the things that you've read, all the things that you've seen people do in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But the story is shit.
Definitely.
Yes. So, yes, that has happened to me too. Like, the story was looking very clean and nice, but I wasn't feeling the story. So,
Okay.
just have to find a balance between technicality and storytelling. And at the end of the day, your story has to be relatable.
Yeah.
And people don't relate to the camera angles. People don't relate to the lighting. People relate to what was said, how it was said, and how it made them feel.
Yeah. Okay. Over the years, you've worked on short films, feature films, TV series, web series. With regards to writing, what have you learned from working on these different types of projects?
So, what I've realized from making films is that Nigerians talk. So people are like, when we're doing, like, when you go for all these workshops and master classes, even in Nigeria and in diaspora, they say, "Oh, show not tell." That is for Hollywood. Nigeria, we talk a lot. We're more expressive. Mugbe, you say waiting, all those things, and I don't think those things. I think the Nigerian way of telling story is way different from the Hollywood way of telling stories.
Yeah.
And I think these three, I had this conversation with someone else in the industry, and the person made me realize that it's not something I had realized. And I might not be able to explain it well because I'm paraphrasing. But hopefully one day you get to interview the person gets to talk, because I think other people need to understand this and learn this the way that I learned it. You see this 3-act structure.
Yeah.
Like, what if we're forcing a square peg in a circle hole?
Yeah.
Yes. What if, like, because we used to tell stories before the structure, Hollywood structure and filmmaking came. And I'm not talking about the time of Colonel Fayan's father or Bassi and Company. I'm not talking about
Is it Tales by Moonlight?
I'm not talking about Tales by Moonlight. I'm talking about stories that our fathers told. The stories that were told to our grandfathers and our grandfathers told to our fathers and our fathers told to us. And those stories were interesting. But if you look at it, the story of the hare and the story of the tortoise and the story of that, they don't necessarily, you can find a way to break it into a 3-act structure.
Yeah.
But most of them don't necessarily come in that format.
Yeah.
Like you can find a way to break it into a 3-act structure, but no, it doesn't necessarily. And sometimes I feel like we've learned so much about Hollywood that we've forgotten to learn from ourselves, from the people around us, from our environment. One of the most important parts of storytelling is environment, and that's why Martin Scorsese's Taxi was so big, because the environment was the character. New York was the character. Most of Martin Scorsese's films about New York, and they are characters in their own right. Like New York is a character for him, and it's very important and interesting. And you've never been to New York, but you literally feel it, the energy from it. And Ang Lee, he tells stories in different continents, from Life of Pi to Brokeback Mountain to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah.
And his environment is a huge part of his story. Kurosawa, that's I can't pronounce his name, but the Asian guy, Last Samurai.
Kurosawa,
yeah. He's like all those things, like telling stories in like your own. Like if you're telling a story in a place, the environment should be part of the story. The people, their personal mannerisms and their personal quirks and I don't know, English is failing me, but you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
Should be part of the story, and I think we lose that a lot, especially in contemporary Nigerian films, even epic Nigerian films. Contemporary Nigerian films try so hard to it looks like we're forcing a certain. I feel Nigerians talk a lot. I feel like when I started learning, again, back to technicalities, I was like, oh, show more, say less. Yes, showing is important. Yes. Show more, say less, but talking is a lot more important in the Nigerian context, because you're making a film for people that talk a lot too.
Yeah.
Do you get? You're making a film for people that talk a lot too. You're making a film for people, forget it. We all male, female, picking, male, female, child, infant. We all like amiable in this country. You're making a film for people that talk a lot. You're making a film for people that listen, they are used to stories and told in a certain way. They are used to continuous stories. They are used to repetitive things. Like something will happen in church and something will happen in the neighborhood, and you go to church and hear it from church, and you go home and you still ask your neighbor. You've heard it from church, they've told you in church, but you went home and you knocked on your neighbor's door and you're like, come on, I heard this thing, so this is how the thing happened. And the next week they're still talking about it, and the next market day you go to the market and they'll talk about it. And then the weekly, during you people's age grade meeting in the village, you go to the village meeting and they'll still table that thing. And then you go to the king's palace and they'll still table that thing. And it still happens in government, Nigerian government, Nigerian society. This is something that has it's still relatable to us in contemporary Nigeria, living in modern day Nigeria, still very relatable to us. We need to find a way to put that in our stories somehow, somewhere, that it's not boring. I understand how being repetitive and being too talkative and your characters being too talkative can be boring to your audience.
Yeah.
But I also understand that there's a space for us to create stories for us in that way, in that there's a space, there's a, like, if there's a way we can put that into a story. And that's what I've learned as being on set. Like, but bringing it back to your question.
Yeah.
That is one of the things that I've really, really learned. That Nigerians do things a lot more differently. And sometimes we're just lifting things. Even lighting, the way we light. You understand? It is the way we light, or our camera. I've sat down and I've thought about this thing. That's after I had this conversation with this colleague in the industry that pointed this out to me.
Yeah.
I sat down and I was like, what if, like, there's another way to light our skin? What if most of the lighting techniques that we've learned is to light for them? What if there's a better way to tell our story through lighting? Like, I don't know. It's like, again, this is just my thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think, yeah, discourse is one part of, like, exploring all this. You know, with story structure, there are different paradigms. And I think, last, like, everybody will choose what they want. Maybe a way for us to kind of explore how stories are different for us is maybe somebody putting it in a book, coming up with a paradigm that works in this, you know, certain way.
Yeah, so I've thought about this. I might not be right. I might not, like, have the right words to truly explain how I feel about the matter. But, like, to be honest, right, the simplest way to say it is that Nigerians talk a lot more than we put in our stories, and we should find a way to, like, introduce that in our storytelling without boring the audience. We should find a way to really, like, focus on those parts of storytelling that makes us unique to our environment, to our tradition. And it's not about wearing traditional clothes or shooting in a hut.
Yeah.
Telling an epic story, or telling a story from the roots, or telling a Nigerian story. Telling a Nigerian story is much more than the clothes we wear and the huts we build to. Like, it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
And the language too. You hear, oh, I'm telling a Nigerian story, you tell it in Yoruba. It's so much more than just speaking Yoruba. Telling a Yoruba story is so much more than speaking Yoruba. I feel telling a Yoruba story is telling a story in the Yoruba way, like how Yoruba people used to tell stories in the olden days. That's what telling a Yoruba story should be. That's what telling a thief story should be. That's what telling an Igbo and Hausa story should be.
Yeah.
Telling a story in their medium, and their medium is not limited to language. Like, if you've traveled around or you've had opportunities to speak with people in the villages or read books, we don't even, like, really create books or knowledge or stuff like that in Nigeria. But if we could just, like, if you could just extend, do you understand? Talk to an old person in the village that all her life or all his life was, like, he or she was the storyteller of that village, either by music or poetry, and you could tell that the way they tell stories, the way they tell the story is kind of, like, very unique and different, and also equally as interesting as the contemporary films we watch now.
Yeah.
And so telling a Yoruba story, telling an Igbo story should be centered around telling a story the way people of that culture used to tell stories. And I think that's what's his name again?
Kurosawa.
Yes, did. And that was what was really, really very unique and important. That's what Scorsese does, and that's what Ang Lee does. When Ang Lee is telling a story, I'm not saying 3-act structure should not be there and all that stuff. You should be, but when he's telling a story from Brokeback Mountain to Life of Pi to Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, the essence of the environment, the culture, it's never lost.
Yeah.
It's not lost at all. You could feel it.
Yeah. Okay, so how about, like, with your directing? What is something that you've learned that you feel people should know? Apart from, you know, like, we need to also, apart from all the technical things, we also need to focus on the actors and what they are doing. What is something you've learned?
Okay, so, so there's this funny thing. First of all, there are a lot of things I've learned. I'm just looking for the most interesting thing.
Yeah.
But there's this funny thing. The first time I was directing, my first feature-length film. A director, someone I look up to, called me, and he was like, "Don't let anybody bully you on set. They'll want to bully you. They'll want to talk over you. Make sure you shout. If you see someone like make sure you are authoritative and you command your set." And the translation for that was shouting, and that is what I did. So I was an emotional wreck on that set, shouting like a lost goat. I was just like, I would just be shouting up and down. Like if I feel threatened, that, and sometimes my DP was like someone I knew. It's not like the person was threatening me, or the person will just genuinely want to give me a better perspective or a better angle. But because I felt like, because they had put that mentality in my head, like, oh, don't let anybody bully you on set, they'll want to tell your story for you, always fight for your story. So he'll be like, oh no, like it might be something as simple as, I'll be like, oh, let's shoot from this angle. And he's like, no, I think this angle is better. I won't even wait for him to explain why this angle is better. I'm like, no, why are you trying to say? So like I was terrible. And I learned that man, shouting is just not at all.
Yeah.
It's at all. So I went to another set. Like years later, I think this year, I was aiding for someone, and I didn't shout once. And everybody on set was like, "Yeah, the AD, you're supposed to be commanding," and I just laughed. And in my mind, I was like, if you know how much I used to shout when I started, like, because this thing, I had to unlearn it. So I took this from my first film to other projects I had done, just shouting like a mad cow. But I just realized that working with people, like, it's not, like, do you understand? It doesn't really translate. Being a director in control of your set does not translate to shouting around and all that, like I thought it would. It was just, again, communication, talking to people, making sure people understand what you want to do. If you have a disciplinary problem, we're all adults. Do you understand? You can find a way to. It just makes people feel more comfortable. It makes people feel open to discussing ideas with you. It makes the actors feel more relaxed and non-threatening, and it gives them the best performance when they know that their director is on their corner and on every other person's corner, and like I can talk. If I don't like something, I can genuinely tell the director. I can genuinely talk to the director about stuff. It just makes it like, but I don't know, it might not work for other people, but it's just a better environment for me. I know, like, we're Nigerians, and Nigerians are generally stubborn, so once in a while you have to like be authoritative, but just being on a relaxed set for me personally, not having to be shouting all the time. And I don't even like my ADs to do that, so I understand that they need to run the set. But I really don't like it when my ADs are just like, maybe I'm trying to figure shit out here, and I'm hearing, I'm like, auntie, uncle, you can tell them, just like walk up to the person. You can still be authoritative and assertive to someone, and talk to the person, and the person will understand. So yeah, that's one thing I learned. It's a funny thing. It's not very important, but every other thing is mundane. Just like I learned a lot more. I learned that you need to know enough of the technical stuff, but not like you don't need to be a technical juggernaut to be a good director. It's just know enough to know that your DP knows what he's doing, your singer knows what they are doing, and move on with life. In terms of the lighter and the camera department, I also learned that the discipline you bring to the set is the discipline that carries on the set. So if you come to work early, you eat when you're supposed to eat, you don't use your phone on set, you don't, like, the things that you want other people to do, not using their phone on set, not eating on set, like just these little things that you want other people to do. If you as a director are doing it, then like it's just easier for other people to not sleep well. Yeah, because as an AD, or sometimes just an observer on a set, I see there are times when there are certain rules and regulations on the set, and every other person like the director is breaking it, but every other person should somehow not break that rule. But the director is actively breaking it, and it comes with this oh, I'm the director, able there, I can do whatever I want. And then when the director is breaking it, then the DP will break it because I'm not too far from the director. So if the director is doing that, I can do it.
Yeah.
And then you're now very close to the DP. So as director, you're now very close to the DP. So you don't want to like rub the DP up the wrong way. So you're trying to tell him to drop your phone, but you're still using your phone. And then you shout at the DP, and the DP is like, why did you embarrass me in front of crew on top phone? And then there's this shout back, and then producer has to come and separate fight on top phone that they say they should not have used in the first place.
Yeah.
And an example of that is we were supposed to shoot in another location, and we needed to wear the crew shirt.
Yeah.
And I noticed that when, especially in Lagos, wearing the crew shirt is insulting somehow.
To who?
I don't know. They feel like it's very derogatory, like it's very degrading.
To who?
I don't
Who
know.
on the set?
Like they just feel like
The whole crew.
yeah, they just feel like, oh, I don't want to be wearing crew. Like obviously, junior crew members will do a PA. They don't have a choice, but like the senior who people consider as the senior crew members always feel like, why would they wear crew shirts? Why would they? And I noticed that when we're on set. So I didn't used to wear crew shirt because we're shooting in a confined environment, and I was, when they were sharing the crew shirt, the producer was like, oh, everybody should wear except the director. And I didn't understand why that rule was made because I'm still a crew member. And so nobody used to wear crew shirts, and it was just like, but we needed to go out and we needed to shoot and we needed to wear the crew shirt. And when they announced that, oh, everybody's wearing crew shirt from, like everyone needs to be on the crew shirt except the director, the same announcement, DOP said in Yoruba, I'm not going to wear anything. His assistant, the camera guy, his two camera guys were like, why are we wearing crew shirts? And like, well, do you know how long I've been doing this time? I'll be wearing crew shirt like a Jew boy. Sound guy said he wasn't going to wear crew shirt. Gaffer guy said he wasn't going to wear crew shirt. And it was just all these moments that I was hearing on the side, and I was like, okay. And then the next day, in the morning, I woke up and I wore my crew shirt and I came to the bus, and I made sure that I was like the first person downstairs from the hotel. I made sure I was the first person. Like, and I did this very thing, like I really wanted to see them on my crew shirt, that I knocked on the DP's room to ask for something that I didn't need. I think it was toothpaste or something when I dressed, and I came with my brush and I was like, you get toothpaste, I think I can't find mine. And he saw me and he was like, D, you're wearing crew shirt. I said, yes, now everybody's wearing crew shirt. And I just made a conscious effort to come down early with my crew shirt.
Yeah. And
then everyone came down with their crew shirt. And it made me feel so, and that's what made me realize that sometimes we're like it's just like that discipline that you want on set as a director, as a producer, like you just have to like show it. Unconsciously people will step in, and if someone is not stepping in,
back to show, don't tell.
Yeah. I mean, but this one is real life.
Yeah.
And if someone is stepping out of line, it's easier to spot that person and the person will self-correct, or it's easier to correct that person, it's easier to call that person out, as opposed to everyone stepping in line. The whole discipline thing on set, right? Sometimes I feel like they require certain people to be disciplined, and then other people can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
I also make it a point to, this is one that most times I regret, not all the time. I try not to regret it, but I make it a point of duty to eat crew food. Like, and I see sometimes like some certain level of actors, like some kind of actors, like you bring an A-list actors, and then you have to like cater to them specially. Or you have to cater to the director specially, or the producer has a special food. I feel very, very bad, and I don't like that segregation. And I always try to eat crew food. And if I don't like if I don't like what is being cooked, I always sort myself out personally.
Yeah.
Or I always have a snack to eat. But I try not to complain, because I don't like that segregation that is created. It's something as simple as food. or as simple as art and craft. Like it's a kind of drink is given only to the director and the producer and all that, and the kind of drink is given to the other people. I don't like that they are made to feel that way, and I feel in some way, in the tiniest little way, sometimes it translates to the work that is being created, to the film that is being created. And I feel like if everybody's eating the same thing, the producers and the A-list actors are all eating the same thing.
They make sure it's good enough for everybody.
They'll make sure it's good enough for everybody. But because they are not eating the same thing, the food is always shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I always feel bad when that happens. At least the few films that I've produced and have been required to be in charge of that, as a producer, be in charge of that department, I always make sure that the food is top notch because I know how important that is. I know how it makes people feel when everyone is eating the chicken, the salad, like everyone is eating that good food. The food is very, very good. You don't have to create a different kind of menu for the A-list actors.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get the need to make A-list actors or... Like, I don't get the list to... Like, you're an A-list actor by craft, by profession, and by your bank account, like how much you're being paid and all that. And it's good. But the fact that, like, I have to go overboard to... Like, I have to just go overboard by budget or anything to create a segregation to create a line, a demarcation from you and the other actors. I feel it doesn't make my work easier as a director. It doesn't make my work easier as a director. I feel like it creates this kind of gap, and I don't like it.
Yeah. Okay, so
I also don't like when, like, big actors, A-list actors, are scheduled in the middle of shoot. So I have this big actor that is coming on set, right? And I know why it's done. Most times they're scheduled in the middle of shoot because beginning of shoot is usually very crazy and you have a lot of downtime, especially in Nigeria. So middle of the shoot, you guys have gotten your act together and you're not going to waste time and waste the person's money and all that. But when the person is coming, like, oh, this big actor is coming on set today. Yeah, do you understand?
Yeah.
As a director, sometimes I feel the anxiety, positive or negative, from the other actors that have been on set for a while. I can feel some people trying to be nonchalant and trying to be indifferent, even though they feel a certain kind of way. Like, they might not show it, but it's the anxiety of just having this important person is coming, and so this person is where I want to be, so I have to bring my A game. And you might have been bringing your A game all through production days. Like, yesterday you were good, day before yesterday you were good, but there's this anxiety that comes because there's this feeling on set that someone extra special is coming. And so if you're working with a young actor, maybe first time, second time, or an upcoming actor, or someone that's really working on his craft, they might not say it, but they might be feeling it. Maybe they are reading extra hard, or they are trying to make it look like it's not getting to them, but it's getting to them. And yeah, sometimes I notice it and I don't like it. So I'd like to figure out, most times I always like to figure out a way to just, like, if the best thing to do, if I can have the actor come on set 1 or 2 times, do like separate, instead of having all the scenes at once, which is cost effective. So you schedule 3 days for all the top actors scenes, and then the person come and run it on in 3 days. I know it's cost effective. I just prefer it to be spread, or at least the person should be on set 2 days prior, or the person should just I don't know, just make the environment less, especially for my actors that are going to work with you, I want less tension.
Yeah, definitely. So the Nigerian film industry is growing. There are a lot of things that we need to kind of improve. What is your top priority?
That question is for God, though, because man, if you ask me, there are a lot of things to improve now. But should I start mentioning it?
Let's mention the biggest one for you. the one that kind of
I think
frustrates
everyone is
you.
important.
Yeah.
Everything is important. I think we're getting on with structure, discipline. I one of the most important things of my career is that I was actually nurtured, and I started my career with very disciplined men in terms of all the abuse stories you hear. I started my career with very disciplined men, and I was fortunate enough to work under men that respected women so much, and I never ever came across that. It's like obviously when you grow older and you're stronger in the industry, no one can bring that to the table or anything. But and even if they do, yeah, like you're more experienced to deal with stuff like that.
Yeah.
Fortunate enough to have had people like that in the industry. So I know that that is something that people like. It's not something that flies these days. It's something that people have worked on for a while. Obviously, in days of Amaka Igwe and times like that, this whole abuse stories and predatory stories were a lot more then than now. So I know that people have worked on that. I also know that people have worked on the quality of the type of film I make in terms of cameras and all that. That was the problem. Even though we've lost story, because like we switched story for camera.
Yeah.
I feel like we had better stories back in the day. Again that's a subjective take, a very subjective take. But I feel like we had better stories back in the day. So in terms of technicalities and camera work and all that, we worked on that. Packaging is there. We're packaging well, good, really good. What are we packaging? I don't know, but we're packaging well. I think what we should work on is censorship. I think we are more censored now than we were 20 something years.
Yeah.
Yes.
So do you mean on the government side of things?
Government.
Okay. Not that we're censoring
the fear
ourselves.
okay, when I say censorship, right? I'm not talking about the fear of telling the kind of stories. Can you tell the Boko Haram story now with your full chest? Everything, the way you feel about it. Can you tell the story about NSAS?
You'll probably not go to cinema or something.
Can you tell the story about NSAS? Can you tell a story about a governor now that committed murder?
Probably.
And that's the
Probably not.
censorship I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And it goes beyond not only this. Telling telling a story about just a very, very unbiased story. Like the story might not be about government or anything in government. The story might just have just one component that you don't want to lie about. This governor that collected bribe was important to what happened to this person's life. I don't want to lie about the fact that you want to use the right name and all that, but you can't do it. You now have to create a different state with a different name. No, how do we create our histories through media when we cannot even tell ourselves the truth?
Yeah.
Not knowing that if I want to tell a story about that part of the Nigerian system, I have to lie. I have to look for a different color. I have to make it look like so annoying that I cannot just tell a story about Nigeria and be Nigerian about. And I'm talking about tribe.
Yeah.
I can't tell a story about how Fulani people got to Ilorin, like the Fulani, the war, like that story. I can't tell a story about that. I can't tell a story of my own take on a monarchy, like the Igbo people or the Benin people, because like every good part has a bad part. You see how they are telling a story of the crown and how they are bringing out both the good, bad, and the ugly part. I can't tell a story about a Nigerian revolution. I can't tell a story about civil war and bring out the good, the bad, and ugly. Like on both sides, both the government and the rebels. I cannot tell an unbiased story in Nigeria, and it's annoying that I can't do that. It's very, very annoying. It's very annoying that when I want to tell a story about Nigeria, I have to I have to be cautious about this. I have to remove this. I cannot talk about this. I cannot tell this, and it's just becoming worse. Because sometimes you don't even want to tell a story about the good people. You want to tell a story about a very bad person in time. But you want to tell the story about this bad person that had this redeeming quality. But because you're going to tell this, you now hear takes like, oh, if you tell a story about it, you have to only you have to only talk about the redeeming quality, or you cannot talk about all this other bad stuff. But the redeeming quality doesn't stand if you don't understand that this person is like this.
Yeah. Do you think there's a solution in sight?
What?
Or is God?
It's God, no. Like for me right now, no. I just think we should, again, there's this filmmaker that I really, really respect, that pushes boundaries, right? And doesn't care. Nigerian filmmaker, tells the story as it is. And that's a good thing. So the best thing I can say, or the best solution is just, man, have balls. Pray to your God to accept your soul in heaven. Have balls and then do it.
Yeah.
If you perish, you died for a good cause.
Yeah. Thanks, Alex, for coming on the podcast.
All right. Thanks for having me.
We have come to the end of this episode. Please remember to leave a rating and a review. You can send your questions and feedback on social media. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at @LegoFilm, and the podcast also on Instagram and Twitter at the Naija Film Pod. See you on the next season and have a happy new year.